There was once a great and powerful king of Persia, Sabur by name, who was the richest of all the kings in wealth and dominion. Generous and beneficent, he gave to those who sought and comforted the broken-hearted. He had 3 daughters, like shining moons, and a son as radiant as the moon itself. It was his custom to keep 2 festivals each year, those of the New Year and the autumnal equinox, on which occasions he opened his palaces and gave gifts and advanced his officers, and the people of his realm came to him with presents. Now the king loved science and geometry, and one day as he sat on his throne during the New Year festival, there came to him 3 sages, cunning artificers and masters of all manner of crafts, an Indian, a Greek, and a Persian. The Indian came forward and prostrated himself before the king, giving him joy of the festival and laying before him a figure of gold, set with precious stones and holding in its hand a golden trumpet. When the king saw this, he said,
"O sage, what is the virtue of this figure?"
The Indian answered,
"O my lord, if this figure be set at the gate of your city, it will be a guardian over it. For if an enemy enters the place, it will blow this trumpet against him, and so he will be known and seized."
The king marveled at this. Then came forward the Greek and presented him with a basin of silver, in whose midst was a peacock of gold, surrounded by 24 young ones of the same metal. The king said to him,
"O sage, what is the virtue of this peacock?"
"O my lord, as often as an hour of the day or night passes, it pecks one of its young and cries out and flaps its wings, till the 24 hours are accomplished. And when the month comes to an end, it will open its mouth, and you shall see the new moon therein."
But it was the 3rd inventor, a Persian sage, who brought the most wondrous creation of all, a horse carved from the finest ebony wood, polished to a lustrous black that seemed to absorb and reflect light in the most mesmerizing way. The horse was life-sized and so perfectly crafted that it seemed almost alive, with eyes that appeared to sparkle with intelligence and muscles that looked ready to spring into motion. When the king saw it, he marveled exceedingly at the perfection of its form and the ingenuity of its fashion. He asked,
"What is the use of this horse of wood, and what is its virtue?"
O my lord, the virtue of this horse is that if one mounted, it will carry him wherever he wishes and fare with its rider through the air for the space of a year and a day.
The king marveled at these 3 wonders, following hard upon each other in one day. Then he entertained the 3 sages for 3 days, that he might test their gifts. After this, they brought the creatures before him and each showed the secret of its movement. The trumpeter blew the trumpet, the peacock pecked its young, and the Persian sage mounted the horse of ebony, whereupon it soared into the air and descended again. When the king saw all this, he was amazed and said to the 3 sages,
"Now I am certain of the truth of your words, and is fitting that I fulfill my promise. Seek what you will, and I will give it to you."
Now the report of the beauty of the king's daughters had reached the sages, so they answered,
"If the king is content with us and accepts our gifts, we ask that he give us his 3 daughters in marriage, that we may be his sons-in-law."
The king said,
"I grant you what you desire."
and bade summon the judge to marry each of the sages to one of his daughters. Now the princesses were behind a curtain, looking on. When the youngest heard this and saw that her suitor was an old man, 100 years of age, with frosted hair, drooping forehead, red eyes, bleached cheeks, and face frightful to behold, she went to her chamber and fell to weeping and lamenting. The princess was the fairest and most graceful woman of her time, and she would have none of this ancient sage. Now the prince, her brother, who loved her with an exceeding love, more than his other sisters, had just returned from a journey and hearing her weeping, came to her and said,
"What ails you?"
"O my brother, if the palace is too narrow for our father, I will go out. Our father has given me in marriage to a sorcerer, who brought him a horse of black wood, and has stricken him with his craft."
Her brother comforted her, then went to his father and said,
"What is this sorcerer to whom you have given my youngest sister in marriage? It is not right that this should be."
Now the Persian, standing nearby, heard the prince's words and was filled with rage. The king said,
"O my son, if you saw this horse, your wit would be confounded, and you would be filled with amazement."
Then he bade the slaves bring the horse before him, and when the prince, who was an accomplished cavalier, saw it, it pleased him. So he mounted it and struck its belly with the stirrups, but it stirred not. The king said to the sage,
"Go and show him its movement."
Now the Persian bore the prince malice because he did not wish him to have his sister. So he showed him only the peg of ascent on the right side of the horse's neck and said,
"Turn this pin."
The prince turned the pin, and immediately the horse soared with him into the air like a bird and gave not over flying till it disappeared from sight. The king was troubled and perplexed and said to the Persian,
"O sage, look how you may make him descend."
But he answered,
"O my lord, I can do nothing, and you will never see him again till the day of resurrection, for he, of his ignorance, asked me not of the peg of descent, and I forgot to acquaint him with it."
When the king heard this, he was enraged and bade beat the sorcerer and cast him in prison, whilst he himself cast the crown from his head and beat his breast. Moreover, he shut the doors of his palaces and gave himself up to weeping and lamentation, he and his wife and daughters and all the folk of the city. Thus their joy was turned to mourning. Meanwhile, the horse gave not over soaring with the prince till he drew near the sun, whereat he gave himself up for lost and was confounded, repenting of having mounted the horse and saying,
Verily, this was a plot of the sage to destroy me, but there is no power save in God. I am lost without recourse. Yet, I wonder, did not he who made the peg of ascent make also a peg of descent?
Now he was a man of wit and intelligence, so he fell to examining all the parts of the horse and saw nothing save a peg like a cock's head on its right shoulder and the like on the left. He turned the right-hand peg, whereupon the horse flew upward with increased speed. So he left it and turned the left-hand peg, and immediately the steed's upward motion ceased and it began to descend, little by little, toward the earth. When the prince saw this and knew the secret of the horse, he was filled with joy and thanked God for delivering him from destruction. Then he began to turn the horse's head where he would, making it rise and fall at pleasure, till he had complete command of its movement. He ceased not to descend the whole of that day, for the steed's upward flight had borne him far from the earth. As he descended, he diverted himself with viewing the various towns and countries over which he passed. Among the rest, he saw a city of the goodliest order, in the midst of a green and smiling country, abounding in trees and streams. By this time, the day began to wane and the sun drew near to its setting. He said,
I see no better place to pass the night than this city, so I will lodge here and on the morrow return to my people and kingdom.
Then he looked for a place where he might safely bestow himself and his horse, and presently espied a palace surrounded by a great wall with lofty battlements, rising high from the midst of the city and guarded by 40 black slaves in mail and armed with spears and swords. He said,
This is a goodly place.
And turned the peg of descent, whereupon the horse sank down with him and alighted gently on the roof of the palace. So the prince dismounted and began to examine the horse, saying,
By God, he who fashioned you with such cunning was a master craftsman. If God extends the term of my life and restores me to my country and family in safety, I will bestow upon him all manner of bounties.
By this time night had overtaken him, and he sat on the roof till he was assured that all in the palace slept. Indeed, hunger and thirst were sore upon him, for he had not tasted food since he parted from his father. So he said,
Surely the like of this palace will not lack victual,
and leaving the horse there, went in quest of something to eat. Presently he came to a stair and descending it, found himself in a court paved with white marble and alabaster that shone in the moonlight. He marveled at the place, but heard no sound and saw no living soul. However, as he stood there, he espied a light within the palace and making toward it, found that it came from a candle that stood before a door, at the head of an eunuch as huge as an Afrit, longer than a plank and wider than a bench. He lay asleep before the door, with the pommel of his sword gleaming in the candlelight, and at his head was a leather bag hanging from a column of granite. When the prince saw this, he was frightened and said,
I crave help from God. Oh my God, even as you have delivered me from destruction, vouchsafe me strength to quit myself of this palace.
So saying, he put out his hand to the bag and taking it, carried it aside and opened it and found in it food of the best. So he ate his fill and drank water, after which he hung the bag in its place and drawing the eunuch's sword from its sheath, took it whilst the latter slept on. Then the prince fared on into the palace till he came to another door with a curtain drawn before it. He raised the curtain and entering, saw a couch of ivory inlaid with pearls and jewels, and 4 slave girls sleeping about it. He went up to the couch to see what was therein and found a young lady lying asleep, veiled with her hair, as she were the full moon at its rising, with flower-white forehead and shining parting and cheeks like blood-red anemones. When he saw this, he was amazed at her beauty and grace, and he went up to her, trembling in every nerve, and kissed her on the right cheek. Whereupon she awoke and seeing the prince standing at her head, said to him,
Who are you and whence come you?
I am your slave and your lover,
And who brought you here?
my lord and my fortune.
Perhaps you are he who demanded me yesterday of my father in marriage, and he rejected you, pretending that you were foul of favor. By God he lied, for you are not other than handsome.
Now the son of the king of India had sought her in marriage, but her father had rejected him for that he was ill-favored, and she thought the prince was he. So when she saw his beauty and grace, for indeed he was like the radiant moon, her heart was taken by his love, and they fell to talk and converse. Presently her waiting women awoke from their sleep, and seeing the prince sitting with their mistress, said to her,
O my lady, who is this with you?
I know not. I found him sitting by me when I awoke. Perhaps it is he who seeks me in marriage of my father.
O my lady, by God, this is not he who seeks you in marriage, for he is foul and this man is fair. Indeed, the other is not fit to be his servant.
Then the waiting women went out to the eunuch and finding him asleep, awoke him. He started up in alarm. They said,
How comes it that you are guardian of the palace, and yet men come into us whilst we are asleep?
When the eunuch heard this, he sprang in haste to his sword but found it not, and fear took him. Then he went in, confounded, to his mistress, and seeing the prince sitting talking with her, said to him,
O my lord, are you a man or a genie?
Woe to you, O unluckiest of slaves! How dare you compare a prince of the sons of the Khosrows with one of the unbelieving devils?
Then he took the sword in his hand and said,
I am the king's son-in-law, and he has married me to his daughter and bidden me go into her.
The eunuch said,
O my lord, if you are indeed a man as you say, she is fit for none but you, and you are worthier of her than any other.
Then he ran to the king, shrieking out and rending his clothes and casting dust upon his head. When the king heard his outcry, he said to him,
What has befallen you?
O king, come to your daughter's aid, for a devil of the jinn in the likeness of a king's son has gotten possession of her.
When the king heard this, he thought to kill him and said,
How came you to be careless of my daughter, and let this demon come at her?
Then he went to the princess's palace, where he found her women standing, and said to them,
What has come to my daughter?
O king, sleep overcame us, and when we awoke, we found a young man sitting talking with her, as he were the full moon. So we questioned him of his case. And he said that you had given him your daughter in marriage. More than this we know not, nor do we know if he is a man or a genie, but he is modest and well-bred and does nothing unseemly.
When the king heard this, his wrath cooled, and he raised the curtain stealthily, and looking in, saw a prince of the goodliest fashion, with a face like the shining moon, sitting talking with his daughter. At this sight he could not contain himself, of his jealousy for his daughter, and putting aside the curtain, rushed in upon them like a ghoul, with his drawn sword in his hand. When the prince saw him, he said to the princess,
Is this your father?
Yes.
She answered, whereupon he sprang to his feet, and taking his sword in his hand, cried out at the king with such a terrible cry that he was confounded. Then he would have fallen on him with the sword, but the king, seeing that the prince was mightier than he, sheathed his blade and stood till the latter came up to him, when he accosted him courteously and said,
O youth, are you a man or a genie?
The prince said,
Did I not respect your right and your daughter's honor, I would spill your blood. How dare you compare me with devils, me that am a prince of the sons of the Khosrows, who, had they a mind to take your kingdom, could shake you from your power?
When the king heard his words, he was struck with awe and said,
If you indeed are of the sons of the kings as you say, how comes it that you enter my palace without my leave and soiled my honor, making your way to my daughter and feigning that you are her husband, when I have slain kings and kings' sons who sought her of me in marriage? And who shall save you from my power, when if I cried out to my slaves and bade them put you to death, they would slay you?
When the prince heard this, he answered,
Verily, I wonder at you and at the poverty of your wit. Can you covet for your daughter a better mate than myself? And have you ever seen a stouter of heart or more sufficient or more glorious in rank than I?
No, by God. But, O youth, I would have had you make suit to me for her hand before witnesses, that I might marry her to you publicly. And now, were I to marry her to you privately, yet have you dishonored me in her person.
You say, well, O king. But if your servants and soldiers should fall upon me and slay me as you say, you would but publish your own dishonor. Therefore, I shall make you a proposal.
Let me hear what you have to propose,
said the king. And the prince said,
What I propose is this. Either do you meet me in single combat, and he who slays the other shall be held the worthier, or else let me be this night, and on the morrow draw out against me your horsemen and footmen and servants, but first tell me their number.
The king said,
They are 40,000 horse, besides my own slaves and their followers, who are the like of them in number.
When the day breaks, then array them against me, and say to them, This fellow is a suitor to me for my daughter's hand, on condition that he shall do battle single-handed against you all, for he claims that he will overcome you and put you to the rout. Then leave me to do battle with them. If they kill me, then is your secret the better hidden and your honor better guarded. And if I overcome them, then is the like of me one whose alliance a king should covet.
The king approved of his counsel and accepted his proposition, despite his wonder at the prince's claim to do battle against his whole army. So he called the eunuch and bade him go to his vizier and bid him assemble the whole of the troops and cause them to don their arms and mount their horses. The king sat conversing with the prince, being pleased with his wit and good breeding, till daybreak, when he returned to his palace and seating himself on his throne, commanded the troops to mount. Meanwhile, he bade saddle one of the best of the royal horses, but the prince said,
O king, I will not mount till I come in sight of the troops and see them.
So they repaired to the field where the troops were drawn up, and the prince looked upon them and noted their great number. Then the king cried out to them, saying,
O all you men, there has come to me a youth who seeks my daughter in marriage. Never have I seen a goodlier than he, nor a stouter of heart, for he claims that he can overcome you single-handed and put you to the rout. So when he charges upon you, receive him upon the points of your lances and the edges of your sabers, for indeed he has undertaken a grave matter.
Then he said to the prince,
Up, O my son, and do your will on them.
O king, you do not deal fairly with me. How shall I go forth against them, seeing that I am afoot and they are mounted?
I bade you mount, but you refused.
None of your horses pleases me, and I will ride none but that on which I came.
And where is your horse?
Atop of your palace.
In what part of my palace?
On the roof.
This is the first sign you have given of madness. How can a horse be on the roof? But we shall soon see if you speak truth.
Then he turned to one of his chief officers and said to him,
Go to my palace and bring me what you find on the roof.
The king's messenger went to the palace and mounting to the roof, found the horse standing there. When they drew near and examined it, they saw that it was made of ebony and ivory, whereat they laughed, saying,
Was it of the like of this that the youth spoke? Surely he must be mad.
Then they lifted up the horse and carried it to the king and set it down before him. All the people flocked round it, marveling at the beauty of its fashion and the richness of its saddle and bridle. The king also admired it and said to the prince,
O youth, is this your horse?
Yes, O king, this is my horse, and you shall soon see wonders of it.
Then take and mount it.
I will not mount till the troops withdraw far from it.
So the king bade them withdraw a bowshot from the horse, whereupon the prince said,
O king, I am about to mount my horse and charge upon your troops and scatter them right and left.
Do as you will, and spare them not.
Then the prince mounted, whilst the troops ranged themselves in ranks before him, and one said to another,
When the youth comes between the ranks, we will take him on the points of our pikes.
Meanwhile, the prince, having settled himself in his saddle, turned the peg of ascent. Whereupon the horse began to sway to and fro and make the strangest of movements, till its belly was filled with air, and it took flight with him and soared into the sky. When the king saw this, he cried out to his men, saying,
Woe to you! Catch him before he escapes.
But his viziers and officers said to him,
O king, how shall we overtake the flying bird? This is surely some mighty enchanter, and God has saved you from him. So praise God for your deliverance from his hand.
Then the king returned to his palace, and going in to his daughter, acquainted her with what had befallen. He found her sore afflicted for the prince and bewailing her separation from him, wherefore she fell grievously sick and took to her pillow. When her father saw her thus, he pressed her to his bosom and kissing her between the eyes, said to her,
O my daughter, praise God and thank him for that he has delivered you from this crafty enchanter.
But she paid no heed to his words and did but redouble in her tears and lamentations, saying to herself,
By God, I will neither eat nor drink till God reunites me with him.
Her father was greatly concerned for her plight and mourned sore over her, but for all he could do to comfort her, passion and love-longing still grew on her. Meanwhile, the prince flew on through the air till he came to his father's capital, and making a circuit about the city, alighted on the roof of the king's palace, where he left his horse whilst he descended into the palace. He found its threshold strewn with ashes, and bethought himself that one of his family was dead. Then he entered and found his father and mother and sisters clad in mourning raiment of black, pale-faced and lean of body. When his father saw him and was assured that it was indeed his son, he gave a great cry and fell down in a swoon. But presently coming to himself, he threw himself upon him and embraced him, straining him to his bosom and rejoicing exceedingly. His mother and sisters heard this, so they came in, and seeing the prince, fell upon him, kissing him and weeping and rejoicing with exceeding joy. Then they questioned him of his case, so he told them all that had befallen him from first to last, and his father said to him,
Praise be God for your safety, O solace of my eyes.
Then the king bade hold high festival, and the glad news flew through the city. They beat the drums and cymbals, and putting off the raiment of mourning, donned that of joy and decorated the streets and markets. The king proclaimed a general pardon, and opening the prisons, released those who were therein. Moreover, he made banquets to the people 7 days and nights, and all creatures were glad. He took horse with his son and rode out with him, that the folk might see him and rejoice. After a while the prince inquired for the maker of the horse, saying,
O my father, what has fortune done with him?
May God not bless him, nor the hour in which I set eyes on him. For he was the cause of your separation from us, and he has lain in prison since the day of your disappearance.
Then he bade release him from prison, and sending for him, and vested him in a dress of honor, and entreated him with favor, save that he would not give him his daughter to wife. Whereat the sage was enraged and repented of what he had done, knowing that the prince had learned the secret of the horse. Moreover, the king said to his son,
I think you will do well not to mount the horse, and not go near it henceforth, for you know not its properties, and it is perilous for you to meddle with it.
Now the prince had told his father of his adventure with the king's daughter, whose city was the city of Sana'a of Yemen. When the rejoicings were at an end, the people returned to their houses, and the king and his son to the palace, where they sat down and fell to eating and drinking and making merry. Now the king had a handsome slave girl who was skilled in playing upon the lute. So she took it and began to play upon it and sing of separation of lovers before the king and his son, and she chanted verses of longing. When the prince heard this, the fires of longing flamed up in his heart and passion redoubled upon him. Grief and regret were sore upon him, and his heart yearned for the king's daughter of Sana'a. So he rose forthright, and eluding his father's notice, went forth the palace to the horse, and mounting it, turned the peg of ascent, whereupon it flew up into the air with him and soared toward the confines of the sky. Presently his father missed him, and going up to the summit of the palace in great concern, saw the prince rising into the air, whereat he was sore afflicted and repented exceedingly that he had not taken the horse and hidden it. And he said to himself,
By God, if but my son return to me, I will destroy the horse, that my heart may be at rest concerning my son.
And he fell again to weeping and bewailing himself. Meanwhile, the prince flew on through the air till he came to the city of Sana'a and alighted on the roof as before. Then he went down stealthily, and finding the eunuch asleep as before, raised the curtain and went on, little by little, till he came to the door of the princess's chamber and stopped to listen. Behold, he heard her weeping plenteous tears and reciting verses, whilst her women slept round her. They heard her weeping and said,
O our mistress, why will you mourn for one who mourns not for you?
O little of wit, is he for whom I mourn of those who are forgotten?
And she fell again to weeping till sleep overcame her. Now the prince's heart ached for her, so he entered, and seeing her lying asleep, touched her with his hand. Whereupon she opened her eyes and saw him standing by her. He said,
Why this weeping and mourning?
And when she knew him, she threw herself upon him and embraced him and kissed him and answered,
For your sake and because of my separation from you.
O my lady, I have wearied for you all this time.
It is I who have wearied for you, and had you tarried longer, I had surely died.
O my lady, what think you of my case with your father, and how he dealt with me? Were it not for my love of you, I had surely slain him. But even as I love you, so I love him for your sake.
How could you leave me? Can life be sweet to me after you?
Let what has happened suffice. I am hungry and thirsty.
So she bade her maidens make ready meat and drink, and they sat eating and drinking and conversing till near daybreak, when he rose to take leave of her and depart ere the eunuch should awake.
Where do you go?
To my father's house, and I pledge you my word that I will come to you once in every week.
But she wept and said,
I beg you by God, take me with you wherever you go, and make me not taste anew the bitterness of separation from you.
Will you indeed go with me?
Yes.
Then arise that we may depart,
said he. So she rose forthright, and going to a chest, arrayed herself in what was richest and dearest to her of her trinkets of gold and jewels of price. Then he carried her up to the roof of the palace, and mounting the horse, took her up behind him and bound her fast to himself, after which he turned the peg of ascent, and the horse rose with him into the air. When her women saw this, they shrieked aloud and told her father and mother, who rushed up to the roof of the palace, and looking up, saw the ebony horse flying away with the prince and princess. At this the king was sore troubled and cried out, saying,
O king's son, I beg you by God, have compassion on me and my wife, and bereave us not of our daughter.
The prince made him no reply, but thinking that the princess repented of leaving father and mother, said to her,
Oh, ravishment of the age, will you, that I restore you to your father and mother?
By God, O my lord, that is not my desire. My only wish is to be with you wherever you are, for I am distracted by love of you from all else, even to my father and mother.
At this the prince rejoiced greatly, and made the horse fare softly with them, so as not to disquiet the princess. Nor did they stay their flight till they came in sight of a green meadow, in which was a spring of running water. Here they alighted and ate and drank, after which they took horse again and fared on till they came in sight of his father's capital. At this the prince was filled with joy, and bethought himself to show her the seat of his dominion and his father's power, and give her to know that it was greater than that of her father. So he set her down in one of his father's gardens without the city, and carrying her into a pavilion there, prepared for the king, left the horse at the door, and charged her keep watch over it, saying,
Sit here, till my messenger come to you. For I go now to my father to make ready a palace for you and show you my royal estate.
Do as you will.
She answered, for she was glad that she should not enter but with due honor and observance as became her rank. Then he left her and went to the palace of the king his father, who rejoiced in his return and welcomed him. The prince said to him,
Know that I have brought with me the princess of whom I told you, and have left her without the city in such a garden, and come to tell you that you may make ready and go forth to meet her in state, and show her your royal dignity.
With all my heart.
answered the king, and straightway bade decorate the city after the goodliest fashion. Then he took horse and rode out in all state and splendor, he and his troops and household and grandees, whilst the prince made ready for her a litter of brocade in which he set slave girls. Moreover, he took forth of his treasuries jewelry and apparel and made a rare display of wealth and magnificence. Then he left the litter and those who were therein and rode forward to the pavilion where he had left the princess, but found both her and the horse gone. When he saw this, he buffeted his face and rent his clothes and went round about the garden as if he had lost his wits. After which he came to his senses and said to himself,
How could she have come at the secret of the horse, seeing I told her nothing of it? Maybe the Persian sage who made the horse has chanced upon her and stolen her away, in revenge for my father's treatment of him.
Then he sought the keepers of the garden and asked them if they had seen any enter the garden. They said,
We have seen none enter but the Persian sage, who came to gather herbs.
So the prince was certain that it was indeed he who had taken away the princess, and he was confounded and perplexed. He returned to his father and told him what had happened and said to him,
Take the troops and return to the city. As for me, I will never return till I have cleared up this affair.
When the king heard this, he wept and beat his breast and said to him,
O my son, calm yourself and master your chagrin and return with us.
But the prince paid no heed to his words and bidding him farewell, departed, whilst the king returned to the city and their joy was changed into mourning. Now when the prince left the princess in the pavilion and went to his father's palace, the Persian entered the garden to pluck herbs. And scenting the fragrance of musk and perfumes that came from the princess, he followed it till he came to the pavilion and saw the horse that he had made with his own hand standing at the door. At this sight his heart was filled with joy and gladness, for he had mourned sore for it. So he went up to it and examining its every part, found it safe and sound. Whereupon he was about to mount and ride away, when he bethought himself and said,
I must first look what the prince has brought and left here with the horse.
So he entered the pavilion and seeing the princess sitting there, knew her to be some high-born lady and doubted not but the prince had brought her thither on the horse and left her in the pavilion whilst he went to the city to make ready for her entry in state. Then he went up to her and kissed the earth before her, whereupon she raised her eyes to him and finding him exceeding foul of face and favor, said,
Who are you?
O my lady, I am sent by the prince, who has bidden me bring you to another garden nearer the city, for my lady the queen cannot go so far and is unwilling, of her joy in you, that another should forestall her with you.
Where is the prince?
He is in the city with his father and will presently come for you in great state.
O fellow, could he find none to send to me but you?
At this he laughed and answered,
O my lady, let not the ugliness of my face and the foulness of my favor deceive you. Indeed, he chose me as his messenger to you because of my uncomeliness, in his jealousy and love of you, else has he slaves and servants out of number, each goodlier than the other.
When she heard this, it commended itself to her reason and she believed him. So she rose and putting her hand in his, said,
O my father, what have you brought me to ride?
O my lady, you shall ride the horse you came on.
I cannot ride it by myself.
She said. Whereupon he smiled and knew that she was in his power and said,
I myself will ride with you.
So he mounted and taking her up behind him, bound her fast to himself. Then he turned the peg of ascent, whereupon the belly of the horse became full of wind and it swayed to and fro and rose with them into the air nor slackened in its flight till it was out of sight of the city. When the princess saw this, she said to him,
O fellow, What did you tell me of the prince, that he sent you to me?
Foul befall the prince. He is a scurrilous knave.
Woe to you! How dare you disobey your lord's commandment?
He is no lord of mine. Do you know who I am?
I know nothing of you, save what you told me.
What I told you was a trick of mine against you and the prince. I am he who made this horse, and I have long regretted its loss. But now I have gotten possession of it and of you too, and I will rack his heart even as he has racked mine. Nor shall he ever have the horse again.
When she heard this, she buffeted her face and cried out, saying,
Woe is me! I have neither gotten my beloved nor kept my father and mother.
And she wept sore over what had befallen her. The Persian fared on with her without ceasing till he came to the land of the Greeks and alighted in a verdant meadow abounding in trees and streams. Now this meadow was near a city in which was a king of great power, and it befell that he went forth that day to hunt. As he passed by the meadow, he saw the Persian standing there with the princess and the horse by his side, and before he was aware, the king's followers fell upon him and carried him and the lady and the horse to their master. When the king noted the foulness of the Persian's favor and the beauty and grace of the princess, he said to the latter,
O my lady, what kin is this old fellow to you?
The Persian made haste to reply,
She is my wife and the daughter of my father's brother.
but she gave him the lie and said,
O king, by God, I know him not, nor is he my husband, but has stolen me away by force and fraud.
Thereupon the king bade beat the Persian, and they beat him till he was well nigh dead. After which the king commanded to carry him to the city and cast him into prison, and taking the princess and the horse from him, set the former in his harem and laid up the latter in his treasury, though he knew not its properties nor the secret of its motion. Meanwhile, the prince donned a traveling habit and taking what he needed of money, set out in very sorry plight in quest of the princess, and journeyed from country to country and city to city, inquiring after the ebony horse, whilst all who heard him marveled at him and deemed his talk extravagant. Thus did he a long while, but for all his inquiry and research, he could get no news of her. At last he came to the city of Sana'a and there inquired for her, but could get no tidings of her and found her father mourning her loss. So he turned back and made for the land of the Greeks, pursuing his inquiries as he went. At last, as chance would have it, he alighted at a certain inn and saw a company of merchants sitting talking. He sat down near them and heard one say,
Oh, my friends, I happened lately upon a wonder of wonders.
What was that?
I was late in such a city, and heard its people speak of a strange thing that had lately befallen. It was that their king went out one day hunting, and coming to a green meadow, espied there a man standing with a horse of ebony and a lady sitting hard by. The man was ugly and foul of favor, but the lady was a marvel of beauty and grace, and as for the ebony horse, it was a wonder. The king took them and bade beat the man and cast him into prison. As for the lady, I know not what became of her, but the horse is laid up in the treasury.
When the prince heard this, he drew near to the speaker and questioned him discreetly till he told him the name of the city and of its king. Which when he knew, he passed the night full of joy. On the morrow he set out and traveled till he reached the city, but when he would have entered, the gatekeepers laid hands on him, that they might bring him before the king, for it was his wont to question all strangers respecting their conditions and the reason of their coming thither. Now it was eventide when he entered the city, and it was then too late to go into the king. So they carried him to the prison, thinking to lay him therein for the night, but when the warders saw his beauty and grace, they could not find it in their hearts to imprison him, but made him sit with them outside the prison. And when food came to them, he ate his fill with them. When they had made an end of eating, they turned to him and said,
What country are you from?
I come from Persia, the land of the Khosrows.
When they heard this, they laughed, and one of them said,
O Khosrian, I have heard the talk of men, but never saw or heard I a greater liar than the Khosrian that is with us in the prison.
Said another,
Nor did I ever see fouler than his favor or more repulsive than his aspect.
What have you seen of his lying?
He pretends that he is a sage. Now the king came upon him as he went hunting and found with him a most beautiful lady and a horse of ebony. As for the lady, she is with the king, who is enamored of her and would marry her, but she is mad, and were this man a physician as he pretends, he would have cured her, for the king does his utmost to find a remedy for her disease and has spent treasures upon physicians on her account, but none can avail to cure her. As for the horse, it is in the royal treasury.
When the prince heard this, he bethought himself of a device by which he might compass his desire. Presently the warders, being minded to sleep, clapped him into the prison and locked the door. He heard the Persian weeping and bemoaning himself in his own tongue and saying,
Woe is me for my sin! All this comes of my want of sense, and that I sought for myself that which I deserved not and which befitted not the like of me.
When the prince heard this, he accosted him in Persian, saying,
How long will you keep up this weeping and wailing? Think you that there has befallen you what never befell other than you?
When the Persian heard this, he made friends with him and began to complain to him of his case and misfortunes. As soon as it was day, the warders took the prince and carried him before the king, informing him that he had entered the city on the previous night. The king said,
Whence come you, and what is your name and craft, and why come you here?
I am called in Persian Hurj. I come from the land of Persia, and I am of the men of art, especially of the art of medicine, and I cure the sick and the mad. For this I go round about all countries and cities to increase my knowledge, and whenever I see a sick person, I heal him. This is my craft.
When the king heard this, he rejoiced exceedingly and said,
O excellent sage, you have come to us at a time when we have need of you.
Then he acquainted him with the case of the princess, adding,
If you can cure her and recover her of her madness, you shall have of me whatever you seek.
May God advance the king. Describe to me all you have seen of her madness, and tell me how long it is since it attacked her, also how you came by her.
So the king told him the whole story from first to last, adding,
The sage is in prison.
Oh, august king, and what have you done with the horse?
It is with me yet, laid up in one of my treasure chambers.
The prince said to himself,
The first thing to do is to see the horse and assure myself of its condition. If it is whole and unhurt, all will be well.
So he turned to the king and said to him,
O king, I must see the horse in question. Perhaps I may find in it something that will serve me for the recovery of the damsel.
With all my heart.
replied the king, and taking him by the hand, led him to the place where the horse was. The prince went round about it, examining its condition, and found it whole and unhurt, whereat he rejoiced greatly and said to the king,
May God exalt the king. I would go into the damsel, that I may see how it is with her, for I hope in God's grace to cure her by means of the horse.
Then he bade take care of the horse, and the king carried him to the princess's apartment, where he found her writhing and beating herself against the ground. But there was no madness in her, and she did this but that none might approach her. When the prince saw her thus, he said to her,
No harm shall betide you, O ravishment of all creatures.
and went on to soothe her and speak her fair till he won to make himself known to her. Whereupon she gave a loud cry and fell down in a swoon for excess of joy, but the king thought this came of her fear of him. Then the prince put his mouth to her ear and said to her,
O seduction of the universe, have a care for your life and mine, and be patient and constant, for we have need of patience and skillful planning to make shift for our deliverance from this tyrannical king. To begin with, I will now go out to him and tell him that you are possessed of a genie, and hence your madness, but that if he will loose you from your bonds, I will engage to heal you and drive away the evil spirit. So, when he comes into you, do you give him fair words that he may think I have cured you, and all will be accomplished as we desire.
I hear and obey.
And he went out to the king, full of joy and happiness, and said to him,
O august king, by your good fortune, I have discovered her disease and its remedy and have cured her for you. So now go into her and speak softly to her, and entreat her kindly, and promise her what may please her. So shall all you desire of her be accomplished to you.
So he went into her, and when she saw him, she rose and kissing the ground, bade him welcome. Whereat he was greatly rejoiced, and bade the eunuchs and waiting women attend her, and carry her to the bath, and make ready for her dresses and ornaments. So they went into her and saluted her, and she returned their greeting after the goodliest and pleasantest fashion. After which they clad her in royal apparel, and clasping a collar of jewels about her neck, carried her to the bath and served her there. Then they brought her forth as she were the full moon, and when she came into the king's presence, she saluted him and kissed the ground before him, whereupon he rejoiced in her with an exceeding joy, and said to the prince,
All this is of your blessing. May God increase us of your good offices.
O king, it is fitting for the completion of her cure that you carry her forth together with the ebony horse, and attend her with all your troops to the place where you found her, that there I may expel from her the evil spirit by whom she is possessed, and bind him and kill him, so he may never more return her.
With all my heart,
answered the king. Then he caused carry out the horse to the meadow in question, and mounting, rode thither with all his troops and the princess. When they came to the appointed place, the prince bade set the horse and the princess as far as the eye could reach from the king and his troops, and said to the former,
With your leave, I will now proceed to the needful fumigations and conjurations, and imprison the genie here, that he may never more return her. After this, I shall mount the horse, and take the damsel up behind me, whereupon it will sway to and fro, and fare forward till it come to you, when the affair will be at an end. And after this you may do with her as you will.
And when the king heard his words, he rejoiced with an exceeding joy. So the prince mounted the horse, and taking the princess up behind him, bound her fast to him, whilst the king and his troops watched him. Then he turned the peg of ascent, and the horse took flight, and soared with them into the air till he disappeared from sight. The king abode half the day expecting their return, but they returned not. So when he despaired of them, he returned to the city with his troops, repenting greatly of that which he had done, and grieving sore for the loss of the damsel. He shut himself up in his palace, mourning and afflicted, but his viziers came in to him and applied themselves to comfort him, saying,
Verily, he who took the damsel is an enchanter, and praise be God, who has delivered you from his craft and sorcery.
And they ceased not from him till he was comforted for her loss. Meanwhile, the prince bent his course in joy and cheer toward his father's capital, and stayed not till he alighted on his own palace, where he set the princess in safety. After which he went into his father and mother, and acquainted them with her coming, whereat they rejoiced exceedingly. Then he made great banquets to the townsfolk, and they held high festival a whole month, at the end of which time he went into the princess, and they rejoiced in one another with an exceeding joy. But his father broke the horse in pieces and destroyed its works. Moreover, the prince wrote a letter to the princess's father, advising him of all that had befallen her, and how she was now married to him and in all health and happiness, and sent it by a messenger together with costly presents and rarities. The messenger in due course arrived at the city of Sana'a, and delivered the letter and the presents to the king, who, when he read the former, rejoiced greatly and accepted the presents, rewarding the bearer handsomely. Moreover, he sent rich presents to his son-in-law by the same messenger, who returned to his master and acquainted him with what had passed, whereat he was much cheered. And after this the prince wrote a letter every year to his father-in-law, and sent him a present, till in course of time his father King Sabur died, and he reigned in his stead, ruling justly over his subjects, and ordering himself well and righteously toward them, so that they loved him and did him loyal service. And he and his wife abode in the enjoyment of all delight and solace of life, till there came to them the destroyer of delights and sunderer of companies, he who lays waste the palaces and peoples the tombs.